Welcome to Game Set Matchup, the podcast where we talk everything partnerships, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Welcome to Game Set Matchup, the podcast where we discuss all things partnerships. Brought to you live from Money20 here in Las Vegas. I'm your host, Greg Watts, and I'm joined by my co-host and co-founder and COO of Finder, Jenny James. Please welcome our guest today, Ana Mahony, CEO and founder of Addition Wealth. Anna, hello and welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
How are you finding M2020 so far?
It's fantastic. Great to see old colleagues, meet new people, enjoy all of the different perspectives of the financial services space.
Has it been different over the years since you've joined?
It keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which is shocking.
Yeah. Well, let's kick off with intros. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit more about who you are, your background, and your role at Addition Wealth, and how you came to found Addition Wealth, going from Uber.
Thank you. Yeah, great to be here. Thank you. So my background is in both consumer finance as well as in tech, having worked at Uber for 6 years. I began my career working on both the private and the public sector side of the consumer finance space. Very quickly realized that more people deserve access to better financial knowledge, understanding, tools, solution, human expertise, and fell in love with the space. So worked for a fund that invested in consumer finance companies. I also worked at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau for a year in the policy world, which is lovely. And then I went to Uber for 6 years. And there I really learned, how do you build product and businesses that enable things that have previously been unaffordable to reach the masses, whether it be a private ride or access to delivery of anything at your doorstep. So my background has been in those two things. Then I saw the need to bring more people access to personalized financial expertise and brought that together to found Addition Wealth.
Yeah. And how have you found moving from such, obviously Uber is now a huge organization, a massively growing, innovative organization, and taking that leap from being in this kind of large organization with all the support that you have around that to kind of going off and starting your own venture? How have you found the journey? And I guess, has it lived up to kind of what you expected it to be, or were there things that you've come across that you may not have anticipated happening when you start the journey?
Yeah, no, I love it. It's definitely been everything that I thought it would be and more. One thing that I think is very important to share is, for me, and starting a company is not an easy thing to do, but the hardest part was actually the decision to do it, having the courage to do it.
Yeah.
And I like to say that because I think there are many people who are 100% capable of doing it, particularly women or people of different backgrounds, where they might not think, okay, I can do this. And maybe they didn't grow up in a family that says you should be an entrepreneur, or maybe they don't think that they have the risk appetite when actually they have all the skills to be able to pull it off. Because I think once you're on the other side and you're in it, it's just like any other job where you're like, okay, what are the 3 things I need to figure out over the next 3 months or whatever it is? What are my priorities? What are all the ways that I can go about solving them, and how am I going to do it? And once you're on the other side and an entrepreneur, it's the same set of questions that you're answering. I think you trade maybe like large company political thoughts for existential ones, right? Like you swap, what does my boss's boss think of me, or am I going to have enough money for the company? Yeah. So, but I think that those two sets of questions can actually be equally stressful to different people.
Absolutely.
But from a capability standpoint, I really try to support so many people, particularly women, to have ideas and to take the time to figure out if they want to do it, because I think so many more people could be starting companies and are very, very capable of doing it.
Yeah, I think that's just such a good point. I mean, both Greg and I came from corporate backgrounds and then started Finder together. And it's a big difference. But actually, as you say, it's a big difference. But once you get into it, you are just facing different questions and different things, which actually is what's enjoyable about it. Because especially if you've answered the corporate questions for a period of time, you can become quite well versed in how to do that. So actually going back to the challenge of answering questions that you don't necessarily have the answer for, or going through processes that you haven't done before, like raising and understanding tax implications and all these things, can be quite refreshing.
Yeah. And I think for people who really like challenge and to to think about, okay, how could I really test out something new?
Yeah.
You have the freedom and the flexibility to do it if you can pull it off. And if you're not going to be able to pull it off, you're usually the first one to figure that out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also, like you're saying about people wanting to take that leap, what's the worst that can happen?
Exactly.
If you try something, 6 months later, it didn't work out, you can go back into, you can go back to where you were originally you can go to another organization, or you can try another business. But I think sometimes people really think there's, a really bad thing can happen. But actually the worst that can happen is the business doesn't take off in the way that you anticipated it, or you don't enjoy doing it in the way you thought you would. But you can always return back to what you were previously doing.
I love that advice because actually I had that fear too. And I remember being happy at my job, and my boyfriend at the time, now my partner, he said to me, like, why don't you go do this? And I was like, well, there's this big risk. What if it doesn't work out? And he was like, if it doesn't work out, you're going to see that it's not working out.
What if it does
and
work
you're going
out?
to change course, right? He was like, you're not going to be stuck in this thing for like 15 years. That's not working out for a long time. You'll figure it out, in 6 months later, you'll be doing something else.
And the benefit is if you do figure out something's not working, it's within your gift to completely change it. You don't have to go through different processes or different stakeholders or different things to make those changes. If you're seeing something not working, you can instantly make that decision to change it. So the ability to either fail fast or succeed fast is all within your gift versus, the kind of corporate politics that you'd normally have to work through.
And to your point, the upside is fully there as well.
Yeah, exactly. It does work. I mean, what if?
Yeah.
Well, but look, I mean, I guess looking to Addition Wealth, I mean, looking at partnerships, what would you say makes for a gold star partnership or a brilliant deal?
Sure. I love this question. So I think it's figuring out, what do you offer? What is somebody else looking for? And then being able to understand how you can align those needs and communicate it clearly. And then obviously the part of the deal of figuring it out, how do you actually get it to the other side? But I think truly focusing on the potential partner's needs, understanding how they want to go about doing it. What are their values? What is their process? How do they want to get to the other side? And then align with it. So we, at our business, we work with a lot of companies. We provide personalized financial expertise to their employees. And what's fascinating is that different companies have different goals for their employees, right? We want to make sure people are maximizing their retirement, or they say we need to get folks through maybe a tough equity conversation, or ensure they can take full advantage of the upside potential of that, or help them get through a specific period of time. And understanding those things then enables you to deliver on that and be able to do it very well. But it's having an open communication, having open trust, and then being able to lean in and execute on those joint.
Sounds good. How do you go about creating them?
Well, I think it's being clear about what you can do, what you can offer. I think it's following up, doing it. I think, in any partnership, particularly in the business world, you need to understand how do they communicate? How do they function? What do they need? Especially if you're working with a larger company with multiple people, who are the stakeholders? What do they need to be able to show? Have I provided that for them? Have I done it in a way that is easy for them to then communicate internally, right? Are you facilitating what is needed on the other side? And then are they also facilitating for you the information that you need in order to be able to put your best product forward?
Thank you.
Absolutely. And that's, sometimes I think people, especially when you're talking about kind of partnerships into a larger organization, sometimes I think that people can lose that balance because they can be, a bit too accommodating of being trying to get that deal, be that. But actually for it to be a partnership, back to your point, there has to be that balance. So yes, you need to understand stakeholder map and work the way they want to work, but equally you need to make sure what's coming inbound is the way you need to operate to really make it mutually beneficial.
It has to be two-way.
100%. And I think if you know what are your boundaries and you can also communicate those and you can do them in a respectful way, do that in a respectful way, I think you also earn more respect from the partner. And then you can find yourself becoming more of an equal, even in a situation where maybe you didn't initially view the relationship that way.
I think what you touched on there, though, you use the word equal. And, our view is that partnerships are two-way and equal. Like any relationship always has to be two-way and equitable. Both parties have got to get something back. So to hear you say equal is refreshing, because if it's not equal, in our opinion, that's a transaction which is just in quotation marks a sale.
Yes.
Which isn't a true two-way, long-term, fruitful partnership.
I think there's also something interesting around, is there anything else you can do beyond what is expected in the partnership to build longer term
Yep.
relationship
And trust.
and trust.
Yep.
And that way, if there's an idea or if something isn't working or if somebody wants something changed, you have the ability to build on that.
Mhm.
And I've actually found that in certain situations when one party maybe does something a little bit that isn't ideal for the other, those can actually be very trust building moments.
Absolutely.
Because when you see that the person on the other side says, it's okay, we're taking a long-term relationship on this, I understand, no big deal, and you're reasonable, you then get that back in other moments as well. And I think at the end of the day, people want to work with people where they trust them, where they know that there's a potential for a long-term relationship and that they can both build off of it.
Brilliant. Yeah. And speaking of that, where do you see kind of partnerships going? So partnerships play a massive part already in businesses. But I mean, I think from our perspective, we're seeing even more growth and more businesses looking at how partnerships can really accelerate revenue and can open other avenues and other doors to them. What's your kind of, I guess, view of the state of the nation of partnerships at the moment?
Yeah, well, if I think about our business, so we help people work through their financial decisions, understanding what's going on with their money, what are their top priorities and questions that they want to work through, and then how do they find solutions for them. And increasingly, those are quite broad, right? It's not just about a budget. It's not just about an investment. Maybe you have a question around a trust and estate plan or your taxes. And so I think that there are increasingly, and Money20 is a perfect example of this, a lot of different solutions that are doing best in class, providing a solution that does X. And if you can figure out, okay, how do I find an organization that aligns with my values? In our case, always putting the end consumer first, acting as a fiduciary on their behalf. But if you can find those partners where you can, again, going back to the basics, shared values, alignment of interests, and able to work together in a trusting way, I think you can do better by bringing different solutions together, not trying to do everything independently, because that takes longer to build. It takes longer to put together.
Absolutely. And it's that shared expertise, isn't it? You know, you don't have to, it's not about generating another function, creating another thing. You know, if someone's out there, to your point, doing it best in class, and how do people work together using that versus trying to just compete and build something similar? And from your perspective, in terms of your goals for partnerships, what would be kind of your areas that you're focused on? Are there particular industries you're interested in partnerships in? Is there particular goals that you have across additional wealth that you want to focus on?
Yeah. So I think it's a bit of what I was just saying, right? People have very broad holistic needs. And what we found is that when you provide a very good experience to someone, helping them understand their money, helping them work through the top concerns that are top of mind for them, they then want to also be able to walk forward and be able to do that. So we've been taking a step back, looking at the holistic landscape and saying, okay, how can we help people better get through all of the needs that they have? What are the pieces of that? And how do we deliver it in a way that is truly consumer first, bringing them the best solutions possible? While recognizing that that can involve other players as well. And so that's how we're thinking about it. How can we provide a truly fantastic, holistic experience for employees and folks on the platform?
And how are you finding now with the current economic state of, well, I guess, global economic state? Are you finding that the needs from some of your customers are changing in terms of how they support their employees? Is there something more that kind of in, cost of living crisis that's kind of affecting, most of the world at this point now? Is there work that some of your companies that you work with are looking at how they help their employees in that space? Or is it more around kind of how they grow their activities?
No, that's right. It's all of the above. So over the course of the last 12 to 18 months, we've done a lot on helping people understand how do you make the most out of your money when the cost of living is increasing, but your salary is not, because it's just not an easy moment for companies to be paying employees more. Even with something like equity compensation, we can do a lot on the upside growth of the equity. And that was a very hot topic 2 years ago. Now we do a lot helping people understand, okay, if you've had a 409A down round, there are actually benefits to that too. Let's help you understand what you can do in this moment. So within financial services in particular, people always need help with their finances because everybody makes financial decisions every single day, right? So the need for making the most out of those decisions does not change. The topics of focus in a given moment based on how the broader market environment is shifting does change what what information and education and tools you put in front of people and how you help them through those various moments.
Good to know. And to our listeners who are maybe starting to form their first partnerships or moving into a partnership roles, what advice would you give them in terms of how to go about those kind of first initial steps of forming a new partnership?
I think discovery and understanding what people need is very important.
How do you do that?
You ask questions and you listen. That's been something that I think has been very important. And that we've learned, you don't want to go say you can do X or Y when maybe that's completely not what somebody else needs, right? And so you don't want to miss an opportunity or just have a miss of a conversation because you didn't take the time to understand what are you looking to solve for.
I think that's a really good piece of advice for sales as well. But I also think it's sometimes also where it differentiates between sales and partnerships. Because again, going in, as you say, with that really open mind of, we can see an opportunity to work with this business, but actually let's not go in with the PowerPoint that says this is how we're going to do it. Let's go in and actually have exploratory conversations is where you are going to shape a more balanced approach to it. Brilliant.
All we can say is thank you so much for joining us on Games That Match Up live from Money 2020. I hope you have a wonderful conference and enjoy Vegas. And we would love to see how we can help you with your partnership journey as well. But thank you for being a wonderful guest.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for joining this week's Game Set Matchup. Tune in to hear more about the need to knows and the do's and don'ts when it comes to creating successful business partnerships.